They laughed when I called legal aid, not the polite chuckle you might give someone who's made a harmless mistake. This was laughter that strips away decades of respect, the kind that says you've become a joke in your own family. I was sitting at my kitchen table, holding the phone number from the community center newsletter. Legal aid services. Free legal help for seniors. "Mom," my son said, not looking up from his laptop, "you're really going to call a charity lawyer?" My daughter-in-law reached over and put his phone on speaker, grinning. "Free lawyers are for people who can't afford real help," she said loudly enough for neighbors to hear through the open window. "What are you going to tell them? That your family is taking care of your bills?" "They're taking care of my Social Security checks, all right." Straight into an account I can't access. That set them both off. Full belly laughs that echo in a kitchen and make you feel smaller with each sound. "Oh, this is rich," she continued. Grammy thinks we're stealing from her. "Mom, you asked us to help with your finances, remember? After you got confused about the online banking." I remembered asking for help setting up the computer. I didn't remember asking them to change my passwords, or set up automatic transfers, or add their names to my 20-year-old accounts. They thought free meant powerless. They were wrong. 48 hours later, their credit cards would start declining, but I'm getting ahead of myself. What made my hands shake as I dialed wasn't just the laughter, it was what I'd found in my filing cabinet that morning. Power of attorney forms with my signature, notarized by someone I'd never met, dated from months when I was supposedly too confused to handle my own affairs. Something in my paperwork proved they'd planned this for months. If you've ever been laughed at for asking for help, you know that feeling in your chest, like something cracking. I'm going to tell you exactly what that free lawyer told me to say, word for word. Because sometimes the people who laugh the loudest have the most to hide. That phone call to legal aid didn't happen overnight. It took 18 months of watching my life slip away one password change at a time. It started innocently enough. My son David offered to help me set up online banking after I mentioned struggling with the computer. This was back when I still believed family help was just that, help. "Mom, you're going to love this," he'd said, settling into the chair beside my desk. "You can pay bills right from home, check your balance anytime. No more waiting for statements in the mail." He was patient that first day, walking me through account setup, showing me how to click and type and navigate screens that seemed designed to confuse anyone over 60. When he suggested creating a password I could remember easily, I was grateful. "How about your wedding anniversary?" he asked. Dad would have liked that. I nodded, watching him type the numbers. April 15th, 1968. The same date I'd used for everything important for 38 years of marriage. "There," he said, clicking save. "All set. I'll write down the login information for you." What I didn't notice was that he'd also written down the password for himself. Helping became controlling without me noticing. The changes came gradually, the way most traps do. First, David suggested I use automatic bill pay to make things easier. Just the basics: electric, gas, water. No more writing checks, no more stamps, no more wondering if payments arrived on time. "Mom, let me show you something cool," he said during his next visit. "I can set up all your bills to pay automatically. You'll never have to worry about late fees again." I watched him click through screens, setting up payments from my checking account to companies I'd been paying manually for decades. It felt modern, efficient. It felt like progress. What about my Social Security deposit?" I asked. "That comes automatically already, right?" "Right, but I can set it up so some of that goes directly to savings. Build up your emergency fund. You want to be prepared, right?" Emergency fund. It sounded responsible, sensible. The kind of thing Harold would have approved of. What I didn't realize was that this emergency fund was going into a new account, an account with both our names on it, but only his access codes. The next month, my bank statement looked different, shorter, missing the detailed transaction list I'd studied every month for 40 years. When I called to ask about it, the automated system told me I'd switched to online statements. I hadn't switched to anything. "Oh, that," David said when I mentioned it. "I thought you'd prefer paperless, better for the environment. Everything's online now anyway. But I like seeing the paper. I like going through each transaction. Mom, you can do the same thing on the computer. Look, let me show you." But when we pulled up my account online, something felt wrong. The numbers were right, mostly. My pension was there. Social Security was there. But smaller amounts were moving in directions I didn't recognize. Automatic transfers to accounts labeled Savings Optimization and Family Emergency Fund. The numbers never quite added up right. "What's this one?" I asked, pointing to a recurring transfer of $300 every month. "That's going to your high-yield savings account. Better interest rate. I researched it for weeks to find you the best deal. High-yield savings account. In 18 months, I never saw a statement from this account." When I asked to see the balance, David always had a reason we'd check it next time. The website was down. He'd call during business hours. He'd get the paperwork from home. Next time never came. By month 6, more changes appeared. My debit card stopped working at the grocery store one Tuesday morning. The cashier ran it 3 times before suggesting I call my bank. "There's a hold on this account," the bank representative explained. "You'll need to speak with the primary account holder." "I am the primary account holder. This is my account." "According to our records, ma'am, this account requires the online administrator to resolve the hold. That would be David. Would you like me to transfer you to his voicemail?" David. My son had somehow become the online administrator of my own bank account. When I confronted him about it that evening, he had an explanation ready. "Mom, remember when you got confused about the online banking? You asked me to handle things for a while. The bank needed to make me primary to set up the automatic systems. I didn't remember asking him to handle anything permanently. I remembered asking for help learning the computer." "But it's my account," I said. "Of course it is. I'm just managing it for you. Like a secretary. Don't worry about the technical stuff." Technical stuff? My own money had become technical stuff. The conversation that should have been my wake-up call happened 3 months later in my own living room, with my daughter-in-law explaining why I needed more help than I realized. "Mom," Lisa began, using the voice people reserve for children and invalids, "David and I have been talking. We think it might be time to consider some additional support for you." "What kind of support?" "Well, you've been having trouble managing your finances. You got confused about the online banking. You forgot to pay the insurance bill last month." "I didn't forget. The automatic payment system you set up was supposed to handle it." "See? This is what we're talking about. You're getting confused about things you used to handle easily." She pulled out a brochure. Bright, cheerful photos of elderly people playing cards and doing watercolor painting. "Assisted living communities," the cover read, "where life gets easier." "We're not saying right away," she continued, "but maybe we should look into guardianship arrangements, just to protect you from making financial mistakes." They made being cared for sound like imprisonment. The word guardianship hit my chest like cold water. I'd heard about guardianship. Once a court declared you unable to manage your own affairs, you became a legal child again. Someone else made every decision about your money, your home, your life. Guardianship wasn't help. It was a cage with paperwork. "I don't need a guardian," I said. "I need my own bank passwords back." "Mom," Lisa's voice took on that patient tone again. "This is exactly what we're worried about. You're getting paranoid about people trying to help you." Paranoid. Another word they'd started using about me, along with confused, forgetful, and stubborn. But I wasn't paranoid when I tried my house key the next morning, and it didn't work. I stood on my own front porch at 7 in the morning, holding a key I'd carried for 12 years, staring at a lock that no longer recognized it. The deadbolt had been changed, the handle lock too. Even the decorative door knocker was different, shinier, newer. A piece of paper was taped to the inside of the door, visible through the glass. "Security upgrade completed," it read. "New keys available upon request." Upon request, I had to request keys to my own home. When David arrived 20 minutes later, responding to my phone call with the casual timing of someone who'd been expecting it, he had an explanation ready. "Mom, we had to change the locks for security. You mentioned seeing some suspicious people in the neighborhood." I had mentioned no such thing. "We're having new keys made," he continued, pulling out his phone. "I'll order you a set today." Order me a set, to my own house. "Where are the keys now?" I asked. "Safe, don't worry. Lisa and I will make sure you can get in whenever you need to." Whenever I needed to enter my own house, I would need to ask permission from my son and his wife. My own house had rejected me. By the time I found those POA forms in my filing cabinet, the house already felt like it belonged to them. That's when I knew I had to make the call. They would laugh at. The confrontation I'd been avoiding came on a Thursday evening in November. I'd spent 3 days working up the courage to ask the questions that had been burning in my chest since the bank incident. David and Lisa were in my living room, David's laptop open on my coffee table, Lisa sorting through what looked like my personal mail. Mail I hadn't seen delivered to my house in weeks. "We need to talk," I said, standing in my own doorway like a guest waiting for permission to enter. "Of course, Mom." Lisa looked up with that bright, patient smile. "What's on your mind?" "My bank account. The one where you're apparently the online administrator now." David's fingers stopped typing. Lisa set down the stack of envelopes. "Mom, we've been over this. You asked for help with the computer stuff." "I asked for help learning to use online banking. I didn't ask you to take over my account." "I didn't take over anything. I'm managing it. There's a difference." "What's the difference?" David looked at Lisa. One of those silent conversations married couples have with their eyes, the kind that excludes everyone else in the room. "Mom," Lisa said carefully, "maybe we should sit down for this conversation." I remained standing, in my own living room, in my own house, with my own mail in someone else's hands. "I want to see my bank statements, all of them, the ones that don't come to the house anymore." "Mom, you're getting upset about nothing." "I'm upset about $300 leaving my account every month for 18 months. I'm upset about accounts I never opened. I'm upset about being called an online administrator's wife when I call my own bank." Lisa's smile slipped for just a moment. David closed his laptop. "You're confused again," David said. "We've explained this. The automatic savings transfers are for your own good. You said you wanted to save more money." "When did I say that?" "Last Christmas. You were worried about having enough for emergencies." "Last Christmas, I'd been worried about a lot of things. My first Christmas without Harold, wondering how to manage the house alone, feeling overwhelmed by bills and maintenance and all the small details Harold had always handled. I never said I wanted someone else to manage my money without telling me where it was going. Confused was their favorite word for me. The word hung in the air between us like smoke. Confused. It explained everything that didn't make sense to them. Confused about online banking. Confused about automatic transfers. confused about why I couldn't access my own accounts. "I'm not confused," I said. "I'm asking questions. There's a difference." "Mom," Lisa stood up, moving closer with that same voice she'd used to talk about guardianship. "When was the last time you balanced your checkbook?" "I don't need to balance it. You took it away, along with my statements." "We didn't take anything away. We modernized your finances. By making me need permission to access my own money. By protecting you from making financial mistakes." The conversation was becoming familiar. Every question I asked got redirected back to my supposed confusion. Every concern I raised got explained as paranoia or memory problems. "Show me the statements," I said. "Right now. Show me exactly where my money is going." David reopened his laptop, clicked through several screens, frowned. "I'll need to log in from home. This computer doesn't have the saved passwords." "Then we'll go to your home." "Mom, it's late. How about we do this tomorrow?" "How about we do this now?" Another one of those silent eye conversations. "Fine," Lisa said. "David, show her the account overview." He angled the laptop toward me. Numbers filled the screen. Account balances, transaction histories, automatic payment schedules. It looked official, professional, like a financial portfolio presentation. It also looked wrong. My money had been living someone else's life. The checking account balance was lower than it should be. The high-yield savings David had set up showed a balance, but the account number didn't match any paperwork I'd ever seen. The automatic bill payments included companies I didn't recognize, service plans I'd never agreed to, subscriptions I'd never requested. "What's this charge for $200 a month to premium life services?" "Insurance," David said quickly. "Better coverage than what you had before?" "I didn't change my insurance." "We did the research and found you a better deal, more comprehensive coverage." "I want to see the policy." "I have it at home. Everything was always at home. Every document, every explanation, every piece of evidence that might help me understand my own financial life was somewhere else, available later, accessible tomorrow." "And this one?" I pointed to another recurring charge. "Family Care Solutions, $500 a month." Lisa and David exchanged another look. "That's for our time," Lisa said. "Managing your finances, helping with bills, coordinating your care. It's essentially a family caregiver fee, $500 a month for 18 months. $9,000 they'd paid themselves for the privilege of taking over my life. You're charging me for stealing from me?" "We're not stealing anything." David's voice rose slightly. "We're providing services, professional financial management. You should be grateful, grateful, for being charged to watch my independence disappear. I want it all back. The passwords, the account access, the statements delivered to my house. Mom, you can't handle this stuff anymore. Look how upset you're getting just talking about it." "I'm upset because my own family is treating me like I'm already dead." The room fell silent. Outside, I could hear Mrs. Williams next door, letting her dog out for the evening. Normal life continuing while mine was being dissected by people who claimed to love me. "Nobody's treating you like anything," Lisa said finally. "We're trying to help you transition to a more appropriate level of care." "What does that mean?" David pulled out his phone, scrolled through what looked like a calendar. "We've scheduled an appointment for you with an attorney who specializes in elder care planning." An attorney? They'd scheduled me an attorney appointment. When? "Next Tuesday at 10. I didn't ask for an attorney appointment. "Mom, at your age, it's important to have proper legal documentation in place. Powers of attorney, healthcare directives, estate planning, powers of attorney." The same documents I'd found in my filing cabinet with signatures I didn't remember making. What kind of powers of attorney? The kind that protects your interests when you're no longer able to protect them yourself. When I was no longer able, not if, when. And if I don't want these appointments? Lisa reached into the stack of mail she'd been sorting, pulled out an envelope I recognized from the law office's letterhead. Mom, this isn't optional anymore. We've already started the process. She handed me a letter addressed to me, at my address, in my name. The return address read, Hilldale Morrison and Associates, Attorneys at Law. The subject line was Re-Guardianship Consultation, Margaret. Guardianship consultation. They hadn't just scheduled me an attorney appointment, they'd started guardianship proceedings. You can't do this, I said. We're not doing anything to you, David said. We're doing something for you, before you make financial mistakes you can't recover from. The only financial mistake I made was trusting my family. I walked to my front door, the one that required their permission to open from the outside. I think you should leave now. Mom, you're being unreasonable. I'm being evicted from my own life. I think unreasonable is the least I can be. They gathered their things slowly. David closed his laptop with deliberate care. Lisa stacked my mail in a neat pile and left it on the coffee table. My own mail, delivered to my house, sorted by people who'd appointed themselves my caretakers. After they left, I sat alone in my living room, holding the guardianship consultation letter. The appointment was scheduled for next Tuesday at 10 in the morning, 5 days away. The appointment was real. My consent wasn't required. 5 days to figure out how to stop my own family from legally declaring me incompetent. 5 days to find help from somewhere, anywhere, before I became a legal child again. That's when I remembered the legal aid number I'd seen at the community center. Free legal help for seniors. The number David and Lisa had laughed at. Free lawyers for people who couldn't afford real help. But maybe free was exactly what I needed. Maybe real help wasn't about how much it cost. Maybe real help was about someone who would listen to me instead of talking over me. Someone who would ask what I wanted instead of telling me what I needed. I picked up the phone and dialed the number before I could lose my courage. The call that would change everything was about to begin. The legal aid number rang 4 times before someone answered. I was calling from my neighbor Mrs. Carter's kitchen, having walked over in the rain without a coat because I couldn't get into my own house. Legal aid services, this is Jennifer. How can I help you? My throat felt tight. No one had simply asked how they could help me in months. My name is Margaret, I said. I think my family is stealing from me. Can you tell me what's been happening? I started with the passwords, the automatic transfers, the accounts I couldn't access, the guardianship appointment scheduled for Tuesday that I didn't know about until yesterday. My voice stayed steady, but my hands were shaking. Margaret, Jennifer said when I finished, how old are you? 73. And you're saying your son has taken control of your bank accounts without proper documentation? I found power of attorney forms in my filing cabinet. They're signed with my name, but I don't remember signing them, and notary signature is from someone I've never met. The line went quiet for a moment. I could hear typing in the background. Margaret, I need you to listen to me carefully. This sounds like financial elder abuse. I'm going to transfer you to an attorney right now. Can you stay on the line? Yes. Her name is Miss Rodriguez. She specializes in these cases. Don't hang up. Financial elder abuse. Someone had given my situation a name, a legal name. The hold music lasted 30 seconds. Then a new voice came on, clear and professional. Miss Margaret, this is the legal aid attorney handling elder cases. Jennifer gave me a brief overview of your situation. I want you to know that what's happening to you isn't your fault, and there are things we can do to help. My son and his wife think I should be grateful for their help. Taking over someone's finances without consent isn't help, it's theft. Even when family members do it, those words hit my chest like cold air. Theft. Even when family members do it. What can you do? I asked. The guardianship hearing is Tuesday. Emergency, she said immediately. This is an emergency case. We can file for temporary protective orders before Tuesday. But I need to see your documentation first. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? Where? Our office on 5th Street. But Margaret, I need to ask you something important. Are you safe tonight? Do you have somewhere to stay? I'm at my neighbor's house. My own locks have been changed. Changed by whom? My son. For security, he said. Without your permission? I wasn't asked. More typing sounds. The attorney's voice became more focused. Margaret, I'm making some notes in your case file. What I'm hearing suggests systematic financial exploitation with isolation tactics. That's a pattern we see in elder abuse cases. You're not the first person to call us about this. Systematic financial exploitation. Another set of words that made my situation real, official, something that happened to other people too. What happens next? I asked. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., bring every piece of financial documentation you can find. Bank statements, the power of attorney forms, anything that shows how your accounts were changed. Can you do that? Most of my papers are in my house, the house I can't get into. We'll figure that out. Do you have any trusted friends or family members who could help you gather documents? Mrs. Carter has been very kind. Good. Is she someone you trust completely? Yes. Then she can be a witness to what we're doing. Sometimes it helps to have a neighbor who's seen the changes in how you're being treated. Bring her if you're comfortable with that. I looked through the kitchen doorway to where Mrs. Carter was pretending to read a magazine, while obviously listening to every word. She'd made me coffee and given me her sweater, and hadn't asked a single question about why I was sitting in her house crying. What exactly can legal aid do? My family says free lawyers are for people who can't afford real help. Margaret, I've been doing elder law for 12 years. I've stopped more guardianship petitions than most expensive attorneys ever see. You won't pay us. We're funded to protect seniors in situations like yours. And you think you can help me? I think your family underestimated what happens when someone calls the right number. She explained the process. Emergency motions to freeze accounts. Adult Protective Services investigations. Bank fraud protocols, court orders. Each step had a timeline, a procedure, a legal foundation. The key is moving fast, she said. Your Tuesday hearing gives us a narrow window, but it's enough if we execute properly. Execute like a plan of attack. What do I need to do? Bring the documentation tomorrow. After that, we start making the calls that matter. Banks, social services, the court. When legal aid contacts these agencies about elder financial abuse, it triggers review procedures that your family probably doesn't know exist. They think I'm powerless. Let's see how they feel about that on Tuesday. We scheduled the meeting for 9 a.m. at the legal aid office. She gave me her direct phone number and told me to call immediately if my family tried to pressure me about anything before we met. After I hung up, Mrs. Carter appeared in the doorway with a fresh cup of coffee. Well, she asked. Emergency case, I said. That's what the lawyer called it. About time someone took this seriously. I spent the night on Mrs. Carter's couch, sleeping better than I had in weeks because for the first time in months, I had a plan that didn't depend on my family's permission. Tomorrow morning, the real work would begin. Tomorrow morning, I would stop being victim and start being plaintiff. The thought should have scared me. Instead, it felt like coming alive again. The legal aid office on 5th Street looked different when you had an appointment instead of just hope. Mrs. Carter drove me there at 8:45. both of us carrying folders of every financial document we'd been able to gather from her house and my old purse. The attorney was waiting with coffee and a conference room that smelled like legal documents and determination. "Margaret, good morning. Ready to get started?" I'd been ready for 18 months. She spread my papers across the table like puzzle pieces, organizing them by date and account, bank statements from before David's help, the forged power of attorney forms, screenshots Mrs. Carter had helped me print from the community computer lab showing the automatic payments I'd never authorized. "This is a textbook case," the attorney said, making notes in margins. "Gradual financial takeover using digital access, forged documents, isolation tactics. Your son and daughter-in-law followed the elder abuse playbook step by step." "There's a playbook?" "Unfortunately, yes, but that means we know exactly how to respond." She opened her laptop and began making calls. First to Adult Protective Services, requesting an emergency financial exploitation investigation. Then to First National Bank's fraud hotline, reading account numbers and transfer dates with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done this many times. "This is Legal Aid Services reporting suspected elder financial abuse," she said into the phone. "I'm transmitting documentation for accounts ending in 4,782 and 3,356 under the name Margaret Parker. I need to speak with someone about emergency account restrictions. Margaret Parker." She'd changed my last name for the bank call, protecting my privacy while making everything official. The person on the other end put her on hold. She looked at me while we waited. "Margaret, I want you to understand what's about to happen. When these procedures get triggered, things move fast. Your son and daughter-in-law are going to panic. They might try to contact you directly, maybe with threats or promises. Are you prepared for that?" "I've been preparing for 18 months without knowing it." "Good, because once we hang up this call, we have 48 hours to document everything before they can lawyer up and start covering their tracks." The bank representative came back on the line. More questions, more account numbers, more dates. The attorney answered each one calmly, reading from the evidence spread across our table. "Immediate review requested," she said finally. "Thank you." When she hung up, the room felt different, quieter, but charged with something I hadn't felt in months. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now we wait for David and Lisa to try to access your money. When they do, they're going to discover something they weren't expecting." Mrs. Carter drove me back to her house, where we spent the afternoon pretending to watch television while we were really watching the clock. 2:15, 2:30, 2:45. At 3:12, my phone rang. I recognized David's number but let it go to voicemail. Mrs. Carter raised an eyebrow. "Not yet," I said. "Let's see what he has to say when he thinks I'm not listening." The voicemail was 3 minutes long. David's voice started confused, then frustrated, then angry. Something about his credit card being declined at the grocery store. Something about calling the bank and being told there was a review in progress. Something about needing to talk to me right away. "Money has its own voice when it says no," I told Mrs. Carter. At 4:20, Lisa called. I let that go to voicemail too. Her message was shorter but more desperate. The automatic mortgage payment had been rejected. Their joint account was showing unusual activity warnings. Could I please call them immediately? "They're starting to panic," Mrs. Carter observed. "Good." At 5:15, the attorney called me. "Margaret, it's working. The bank has flagged multiple unauthorized access attempts on your accounts. They've temporarily frozen the automatic transfer functions pending investigation." "What does that mean exactly?" "It means David and Lisa can't move your money around anymore. And it means the bank's fraud detection algorithms are now documenting every time they try." Fraud detection algorithms. Pattern recognition is what computers do best. How long does this last? The temporary freeze? 48 hours minimum. But Margaret, we're not just freezing accounts. We're building a case. Every declined transaction, every access attempt, every panicked phone call they make to the bank gets recorded as evidence. Evidence of what? Evidence that they've been treating your money like their money. Evidence that when that access gets cut off, they react like people who've lost something that was never theirs to begin with. The attorney explained the next phase. Adult Protective Services would interview me tomorrow morning to assess whether I was safe and competent. A bank investigator would review 18 months of account activity for patterns of unauthorized access. The court would receive emergency motions requesting protective orders. Your Tuesday guardianship hearing just became much more complicated for them, she said. That evening, David showed up at Mrs. Carter's door. I watched through the front window as he rang the doorbell repeatedly, then knocked, then tried to peek through the side windows. Mrs. Carter had turned off most of the lights and parked her car in the garage so the house looked empty. "Mom," David called through the door. "Mom, I know you're in there. We need to talk about this bank situation. There's been some kind of mistake. Like discovering his access to my money wasn't as permanent as he'd assumed." He stood on the porch for 20 minutes, alternating between gentle pleading and frustrated demands. Finally, he left a note tucked under Mrs. Carter's doormat. "Mom, call me immediately. The bank is saying crazy things about fraud and investigations. You know I've only been helping you. We can fix this if you just call me back." Mrs. Carter read the note aloud in her kitchen. "Helping you," she repeated. Interesting choice of words. He still thinks I don't understand what they've been doing. Do you want to call him back? Not yet. Let them spend the night wondering what kind of help I'm getting now. The next morning, the Adult Protective Services investigator arrived at Mrs. Carter's house at 9 a.m. sharp. Celia Martinez, a woman in her 40s with a professional clipboard and the kind of eyes that had seen every variation of family exploitation. "Miss Parker, I'm here to assess your living situation and financial independence. This is a routine investigation based on reports of possible elder abuse." Miss Parker. The legal aid attorney had coordinated the name change with APS too. We sat in Mrs. Carter's living room while Celia asked questions about my daily activities, my mental clarity, my ability to manage my own affairs. Did I understand my financial situation? Did I feel safe? Did I believe I was being taken advantage of? Yes, I answered to the last question. I believe I've been systematically stolen from for 18 months. Celia took detailed notes. She reviewed the bank statements, the forged power of attorney documents, the timeline of account changes. She asked about the house lockout, the guardianship petition, the family caregiver fees. "Miss Parker, based on what I'm seeing here, you appear to be mentally competent and fully capable of managing your own affairs. What I'm also seeing is clear evidence of financial exploitation by family members. What happens next? I'm recommending that all financial restrictions be lifted and that you receive assistance in securing your accounts and living situation. I'm also flagging this case for potential criminal investigation." Criminal investigation. The words hung in the air like a bell that couldn't be unrung. After Celia left, I sat in Mrs. Carter's kitchen with my phone in my hands. David had called 6 more times since yesterday. Lisa had called 4 times. The voicemails were getting angrier, more desperate, more demanding. At 11:30, my phone rang again. This time it was a number I didn't recognize. "Miss Parker, this is Detective Walsh with the Financial Crimes Unit. I've been assigned to investigate the reports of elder financial abuse filed yesterday. Can we schedule a time to speak?" Detective Walsh. Help was coming with badges and legal authority. Yes, I said. We can do that. How about this afternoon? I'd like to review the evidence while the account activity is still fresh. This afternoon works. One more thing, Miss Parker. Have the subjects of this investigation tried to contact you directly since the account restrictions went into effect? Subjects of the investigation. David and Lisa had become subjects. They've called multiple times. They've shown up at my temporary residence. They've left notes demanding I call them back. Good. Don't contact them directly. If they approach you again, document it and let us know immediately. This kind of pressure is common when financial access gets cut off, and it often provides some of our best evidence of intent. After I hung up, Mrs. Carter looked at me with something that might have been pride. Margaret, you've got legal aid, adult protective services, the bank fraud department, and the police all working on your case. That's quite an army for someone your family thought was powerless. I looked at my phone, showing 14 missed calls from David and Lisa in the past 24 hours. They're about to find out what 48 hours of real consequences feels like. The countdown clock was ticking in my favor now. The call I'd been waiting for came at 7:30 Friday morning, exactly 48 hours after the attorney had contacted the bank. David's name appeared on my phone screen, and this time I answered. Mom, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for 2 days. His voice was strained, higher pitched than usual. In the background, I could hear Lisa talking rapidly to someone, her voice carrying the edge of panic. I've been busy, I said. Busy? Mom, there's something seriously wrong with the bank accounts. They're saying there's some kind of investigation. They're saying someone reported fraud. Really? Mom, you need to come home right now. We need to figure this out together. This is obviously some kind of mistake. Mistake, their favorite word when things didn't go according to their plan. David, I asked, when you say we need to figure this out, what exactly needs figuring? A pause. I could hear Lisa in the background. Tell her the mortgage payment bounced. Tell her about the credit cards. Well, some of the automatic payments aren't going through. The bank is asking for additional documentation about account access. It's just bureaucratic nonsense, but we need to get it sorted out. What kind of additional documentation? Proof that we're authorized to manage your accounts. But Mom, you know we are. You asked us to help you. I asked for help learning to use the computer. I didn't ask you to take over my bank accounts. Mom, you're getting confused again. Remember? You signed papers giving us authority to handle your finances. Papers I don't remember signing, with a notary I've never met. The line went quiet. I could hear Lisa's voice getting louder in the background, but I couldn't make out the words. Mom, David said finally, just come home. We'll explain everything. I don't think so. What do you mean you don't think so? I mean, I won't be coming home to explain why my own money isn't available to me. Mom, what's gotten into you? You're acting like we're strangers. The laughing had stopped. The begging had started. David, I have to go now. Mom, wait. Don't hang up. We need to. I hung up. Mrs. Carter looked at me from across the kitchen table where she was pouring coffee. How did that feel? She asked. Like winning the first hand in a very long game. At 9:15, Detective Walsh arrived at Mrs. Carter's house with 2 folders and a digital recorder. He was younger than I'd expected, probably mid-30s, with a kind of careful attention to detail that comes from investigating liars for a living. Miss Parker, I've reviewed the initial documentation. Before we proceed, I want you to know that financial exploitation of the elderly is a serious crime. If the evidence supports the allegations, your family members could face significant legal consequences. I understand. Good. I also want you to know that what you've done, documenting everything, seeking legal help, preserving evidence, was exactly right. Many victims never report this kind of abuse because it's family, victims. He called me a victim, but somehow it didn't feel diminishing coming from him. It felt like recognition. Can you walk me through the pattern of financial control? He asked, opening his recorder. I told him about the gradual takeover, the password changes disguised as help, the automatic transfers to accounts I'd never seen statements for, the $500 monthly family caregiver fee, the power of attorney documents with signatures I didn't remember making. Detective Walsh took notes and asked for specific dates, amounts, account numbers. Everything I'd learned to remember precisely over 18 months of being told I was confused. Miss Parker, you mentioned your son and daughter-in-law changed the locks on your house without your permission. Yes, last month. They said it was for security. Do you have any documentation of this? Receipts, communications? David left a note on the door explaining the security upgrade. I still have it. Good, we'll need that. What about communications since the bank restrictions went into effect? I showed him my phone. 17 missed calls from David, 12 from Lisa, text messages demanding I call back immediately, voicemails that started pleading and became increasingly angry. Classic pattern, Detective Walsh said. When the money stops flowing, the pressure intensifies. These calls are evidence of their expectation of continued access to your funds. At 10:30, there was a knock at Mrs. Carter's front door. Through the window, I could see David and Lisa standing on the porch. David was holding a stack of papers. Lisa was checking her phone repeatedly. They're here, I told Detective Walsh. Perfect timing. Are you ready for this conversation? I've been ready for 18 months. Detective Walsh answered the door. I watched from the living room as David and Lisa registered the presence of a police officer in the house where I was staying. Good morning, Detective Walsh said. I'm Detective Walsh with Financial Crimes. You must be David and Lisa. We've been hoping to speak with you. David's mouth opened and closed without sound. Lisa took a step backward. This is a mistake, Lisa said quickly. We're just here to check on David's mother. She's been staying with the neighbors, and we're worried about her. Miss Parker, Detective Walsh said, turning toward me. Your son and daughter-in-law are here. Would you like to speak with them? I walked to the doorway. David and Lisa looked smaller than I remembered, more nervous, less certain they controlled the conversation. Hello, David. Hello, Lisa. Mom, David said, we need to talk about this bank situation. There's been some kind of misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? Well, the bank is saying we don't have authorization to manage your accounts. But you know that's not right. You asked us to help you. I asked for help learning the computer. When did that become permission to take over my financial life? Mom, you're confused. You signed papers. We have power of attorney. Show me. David fumbled with his stack of paper and pulled out the forms I'd found in my filing cabinet, the ones with signatures I didn't remember making. Detective Walsh examined the documents. Mr. David, he said, when were these documents notarized? Last spring in March. And who was present when your mother signed them? We were. And the notary. What notary? David looked at Lisa. Lisa looked at the papers. I don't remember the notary's name, Lisa said. But it's all legal. Everything's been notarized properly. The notary's signature on these documents belongs to someone who had their license revoked 6 months before this date, Detective Walsh said calmly, for falsifying elder care documents. The porch went quiet, except for the sound of Lisa's phone buzzing in her hand. That's impossible, David said. We wouldn't. I mean, we were just helping. Mom was getting confused about her finances. She needed help. Help, Detective Walsh repeated. Can you explain the $500 monthly transfer to your joint account? The one labeled Family Care Services. That's for the time we spend managing her accounts. It's like a caregiver fee. Authorized by whom? By Mom. She agreed to it. Mrs. Parker, Detective Walsh asked, did you authorize your son to charge you $500 monthly for accessing your own bank accounts? No. Did you authorize automatic transfers from your checking account to accounts in other people's names? No. Did you authorize your son and daughter-in-law to change your house locks and deny you access to your own home? No. Detective Walsh closed his notepad. Mr. David, Miss Lisa, I need to inform you that you're being investigated for elder financial abuse, identity theft, and fraud. The evidence we've gathered suggests systematic exploitation of a family member's financial resources using forged documentation and unauthorized access. David's face went white. Lisa's phone buzzed again, and this time she looked at the screen. The bank, she said to David. They're calling about the accounts. Managin' was your word for stealing, I said quietly. Lisa looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before, not condescending or impatient, something closer to fear. Mom, David said, you don't understand what you're doing. If you keep this up, we could lose the house. Lisa could lose her job. This will destroy our family. You destroyed our family 18 months ago when you decided I was too confused to control my own money. But we were helping you. You were helping yourselves. The legal aid attorney arrived 20 minutes later, carrying a folder of court documents and wearing the expression of someone who'd won cases like this before. Mr. David, Miss Lisa, she said by way of introduction. I'm the attorney representing your mother in this elder abuse case. I have some documents for you to review. She handed David a set of papers. Court orders freezing all automatic transfers from his mother's accounts. Temporary restraining orders preventing further access to her financial records. A formal petition requesting full investigation of 18 months of account activity. What this means, the attorney explained, is that your access to your mother's money is permanently revoked pending criminal investigation. It also means that any money taken from her accounts through unauthorized transfers will need to be returned. Returned? Lisa asked. How much money? Based on preliminary analysis, approximately $27,000 in unauthorized transfers and fees over 18 months. $27,000. I hadn't known the total until that moment. We don't have $27,000, Lisa said. That's between you and the court, the attorney replied. Theft is theft, even when family does it. David sat down heavily in Mrs. Carter's porch chair. Mom, he said, we can work this out. We can pay you back. We can fix this. You can't fix 18 months of lying to me about my own financial situation. But I'm your son. Being my son didn't stop you from treating me like your personal bank account. The attorney handed me a folder of my own. Miss Parker, these documents restore full access to all your accounts. The bank has removed all unauthorized users and reset your passwords. Your house locks will be changed back today, and you'll have new keys by this evening. New keys to my own house, access to my own money, control over my own life. I looked at David and Lisa, sitting on Mrs. Carter's porch, holding court orders that dismantled 18 months of systematic theft. The free lawyer, I said, had cost them everything. Detective Walsh closed his notepad. Mr. David, Miss Lisa, I'll need you both to come to the station this afternoon for formal statements. You have the right to bring attorneys. After they left, I stood in Mrs. Carter's doorway, watching them walk to their car. David was carrying the court papers like they weighed 50 pounds. Lisa was on her phone, probably calling lawyers or maybe her mother. They weren't laughing anymore. The attorney stood beside me, organizing her papers. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Like justice," I said, which turns out to feel better than revenge. The locksmith arrived at my house at 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, 3 hours after the confrontation on Mrs. Carter's porch. I stood on my own front steps, holding court-ordered documentation that gave me legal authority to change the locks on my own property. "New deadbolt, new handle lock, and new keys," the locksmith confirmed. "You want me to disable any existing keypad access too?" "Yes, I want to be the only person who can get into this house." While he worked, I walked through rooms that felt familiar yet strange. Everything was exactly where I'd left it, but somehow different. Cleaner maybe, more organized, as if David and Lisa had been maintaining the house while planning to inherit it. My mail was stacked neatly on the kitchen counter. 18 months of bank statements, insurance documents, and Social Security correspondence that had been redirected here while I was locked out. I sat at my own kitchen table and opened envelopes that should have been mine to read when they arrived. The bank statements told the complete story in numbers and dates, the gradual increase in automatic transfers, the appearance of new payees I'd never authorized, the slow disappearance of my financial independence, documented month by month in official bank letterhead, but also, in the most recent statements, the sudden reversal. Account restrictions lifted, unauthorized users removed, access restored to the original account holder. Me. The locksmith finished his work and handed me 3 new keys on a ring I recognized. The same ring I'd carried for 12 years, the one David had taken when he changed the locks for security. "All set, ma'am. Nobody gets in without your permission now." Thank you. Coming home felt like winning a war. I spent the afternoon reclaiming my space. I reset the password on my computer to something David had never taught me. I called the bank and listened to my account balance over the phone, using my own voice recognition instead of requesting it through someone else. I sat in my favorite chair and read my mail at my own pace, without anyone explaining what I needed to understand about it. At 5:30, David knocked on my front door. I looked through the peephole before answering. He was alone, carrying a paper grocery bag and wearing the expression of someone who'd spent the afternoon calculating how much trouble he was in. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. "Mom," he said, "I brought your prescription medications. I had them in our medicine cabinet." He held out the bag. Inside were 3 pill bottles with my name on them, medications for blood pressure and cholesterol that I'd been taking for years. "You've been keeping my prescriptions at your house." "For safekeeping. Lisa thought it would be easier to manage your medications if we kept them organized." Managing my medications, like managing my money. Another aspect of my life that had been relocated for my own good. "David," I said, taking the bag, "we need to talk." "Mom, I know you're angry, but we never meant to hurt you. We were trying to help." "By stealing $27,000 from me?" "We weren't stealing. We were managing your finances because you were getting confused. I was never confused about my money. I was confused about why I couldn't access it." He leaned against my doorframe, looking older than he had a week ago. "Mom, what happens now? Are you really going to press charges against your own son?" "That depends." "On what?" "On whether you understand the difference between helping someone and robbing them." "It wasn't robbery." I started to close the door. "Wait," he said quickly. "Mom, wait. I know we made mistakes, but we can fix this. We can pay the money back." "How?" "We'll figure something out. We'll get a loan. We'll pay you back every month until it's gone." "David, you just lost access to my accounts that you were using to pay your own bills. How are you going to get a loan to pay me back when you can't even pay your mortgage without my Social Security?" The question hung between us like a challenge. He opened his mouth to answer, then closed it. "I don't know," he said finally. "That's the first honest thing you've said to me in 18 months. I let him stand there while I considered my next words. "David, if you want to be part of my life again, you're going to have to prove you can manage your own life first. Get your finances in order without my money. Keep a job without depending on my accounts. Learn to pay your bills like every other adult your age. For how long? Until I believe you understand that I'm your mother, not your retirement plan." He looked down at his shoes. "Mom, I'm sorry. We really are sorry." "I believe you're sorry you got caught." "No, I'm sorry we hurt you. I'm sorry we made you feel like you couldn't trust your own family." Something in his voice was different, smaller, less certain he deserved forgiveness just for asking. "David," I asked, "do you understand what you put me through? 18 months of being told I was confused when I was actually being lied to?" "Yes." "Do you understand that you made me afraid to live in my own house? Yes. Do you understand that you stole money from a 73-year-old woman who trusted you? Yes. Then you understand why trust, it turns out, has to be earned back." I closed the door and locked it with my new key. On Saturday morning, Lisa called. I let it go to voicemail, then listened to her message while I drank coffee in my own kitchen. "Margaret, this is Lisa. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted to apologize. David and we got carried away trying to help, and we ended up making everything worse. I know you probably can't forgive us right now, but I hope someday you'll understand that we never meant to hurt you, never meant to hurt me. While they were charging me $500 a month to steal from me, I deleted the message." Sunday evening, Mrs. Carter came by to check on me. We sat on my front porch, the one where David and Lisa had received court orders 2 days earlier. "How are you settling back in?" she asked. "Better than I expected. It's quiet, but it's mine again. Any regrets about the legal action?" "Only that I waited so long to make the call. What happens with David and Lisa now? They have to pay the money back. They have to stay away from my accounts. And they have to figure out how to live like adults without using their family as a bank. Think they'll manage it? I hope so, for their own sake." Mrs. Carter was quiet for a moment. "Margaret, you know what I admire about how you handled this?" "What?" "You didn't just get your money back. You got your dignity back. That's harder to steal, but it's also harder to restore." We sat on my porch as the sun set over a neighborhood that felt like home again. In my pocket, I carried keys that worked in my own locks. In my purse, I had bank cards that accessed my own accounts. In my head, I had the phone number of a legal aid attorney who'd taught me that free help could be more powerful than expensive control. Tomorrow, David would have to figure out how to pay his mortgage without automatic access to my Social Security. Lisa would have to explain to her friends why their credit cards were declining. And I would wake up in my own bed, in my own house, with my own money in accounts that only I could access. It felt like the beginning of something, not revenge but justice, not isolation but independence, not power over them but power over my own life again. 3 months after the confrontation, I received a check in the mail from David and Lisa for $1,500. The memo line read, "Repayment 1 of 18." I deposited it into my own account using my own debit card at the drive-through ATM, where the machine recognized my voice and processed my transaction without requiring anyone else's approval. David had found a second job delivering groceries on weekends. Lisa had taken a part-time position at a tax preparation office during filing season. They were learning to live on their own income, slowly and sometimes not successfully, but without access to mine. We spoke every 2 weeks, usually on Sunday evenings, conversations that were careful and brief. David would update me on their progress, paying back the money they'd taken. I would update him on my activities that no longer required his permission or oversight. "Mom, how's Mrs. Carter?" "She's fine. We're thinking about taking a day trip to the botanical gardens next week." "That sounds nice." "It does. I can afford it, now that I'm not paying $500 a month for financial management I never requested." These conversations had a different quality than our talks from before the theft. David listened more. He asked fewer questions about my spending and offered less advice about what I should do with my money. He sounded like someone who was learning to be my son instead of my supervisor. The legal aid attorney called me monthly to check on my situation, not because there were ongoing legal issues, but because she understood that financial independence required emotional support too. "How are you feeling about the family situation?" she asked during our December call. Cautiously optimistic. "That sounds healthy." David seems to understand that he has to prove he can be trusted again, not just apologize for breaking that trust. "And how do you feel about that process?" Patient. I have time to wait and see if he means what he says. I'd learned something important about patience in the months since I'd made that first legal aid call. Real change happens slowly, and trust rebuilds in small actions over long periods. David could tell me he was sorry, but David showing me he could pay his own bills without my Social Security checks was evidence I could actually see. Mrs. Carter and I had developed a routine of Tuesday evening dinners, alternating between her house and mine. She never asked me to explain my family situation or offered advice about whether I should forgive anyone for anything. She simply made it clear that I had a neighbor who cared about my well-being without wanting to manage my life. "You know what I like about our friendship?" she said over soup one evening. "What?" "Neither of us needs rescuing. We're just two women who enjoy each other's company." Two women who enjoy each other's company. It had been a long time since anyone had described their relationship with me in terms that didn't involve my need for help or supervision. I still carried the legal aid attorney's card in my wallet, not because I expected more family financial exploitation, but because I'd learned something valuable about asking for help. Free didn't mean powerless. It meant protected. The phone number I'd been afraid to call had connected me to people who understood that elderly didn't mean incompetent, and that family help shouldn't require surrendering your independence. 6 months after the confrontation, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Harold's death 4 years earlier. Safe in my own life. Not because nothing bad could happen, but because I knew how to recognize it when it did. And I knew where to call for help that actually helped instead of taking over. Security, it turned out, came from knowing you could protect yourself, not from letting other people protect you from everything. 6 months later, I was in line at the grocery store when I heard a familiar conversation happening behind me. An elderly woman was on the phone, her voice strained with the kind of confusion I recognized immediately. "But honey, I don't understand why I can't see my bank statements anymore. You said you were helping me with the online banking, but now I can't access anything." I turned around. The woman was probably in her late 70s, holding an old flip phone and looking exactly like I had 18 months ago, lost in her own financial life. When she hung up, I approached carefully. "Excuse me," I said. I couldn't help overhearing. "Are you having trouble with family members controlling your bank accounts?" She looked at me with the expression of someone who'd been told she was imagining things. "My daughter says she's helping me manage my finances, but I can't get any information about my own money anymore." I reached into my purse and pulled out the legal aid card I still carried. "There's a number you can call," I told her. Free legal help for seniors. They specialize in exactly what you're describing. She took the card like it was made of gold. Free legal help? Really? Really. I called them myself when my family was doing the same thing to me. They helped me get everything back. Everything? My house, my bank accounts, my independence, all of it. She studied the card carefully. Did it hurt your relationship with your family? It hurt the part of our relationship that was based on them stealing from me. The rest of it, we're rebuilding on healthier terms. 6 months ago, I would never have believed I'd be standing in a grocery store helping another elder recognize financial abuse. But there I was, passing along the phone number that had changed my life. Sometimes the best help comes free, I told her, when you know where to call. If someone you love is being taken advantage of financially, or if you've experienced this yourself, please know that help is available. Share this story with anyone who might need to hear it, because sometimes the most important conversation starts with knowing you're not alone.